I am now live. Hooray! All right. This is a live Q&A session for dietetic students, covering anything people could ask about dietetic internship applications, the process with DICUS, if you are looking ahead to the spring 2021 match, or if you submitted in the fall 2020 match and are in that waiting period of you submitted and you're waiting for programs to go through their process. Maybe you have an interview coming up, or maybe you're just waiting for the fall match day to come around. Then you can ask about that as well. All right, I'm just seeing stuff that's coming up here. All right, just some information for anyone who is on the live or who watches later. This is being recorded right before Fancy 2020. It's virtual Fancy this year, thanks to accommodations made for COVID. But part of Fancy being virtual is that the NDEP supervised practice fair is also virtual, which is awesome because that means that you don't have to be in the city that Fancy is in order to go to the fair. You also do not have to be registered for Fancy to attend any of the virtual sessions that programs will have. So every day starting Sunday, so let's see, Sunday, October 18th, Monday, October 19th, and Tuesday, October 20th, programs will be having virtual sessions where students can meet with them, and this is taking place of what would have been a fair that took in place in like a ballroom, and you would just go and walk around to the table that had the programs you were interested in. If you want to get a list of the programs that are participating in the fair, the date that they will be holding their virtual session, and the link and connection information to attend that session if you would like, send me a DM that says fair, and I will send that list to you. It was made available just earlier this week, so that will be a really useful resource for people who are looking to get to know more about the programs that they are interested in and thinking about applying to. So, okay, I'm just looking at messages that are popping up. Oops. Okay. All right, well, I have a few questions that were submitted before this started, so I will go through those. First, I actually want to answer a question that came up from someone who was applying in the fall match, and they had some questions about submitting their actual application. They kept getting this error message coming up as they were trying to submit on the day of the deadline, and it's because there was something with their references. It's really important for applicants to understand that references kind of have two parts in the DICUS application. You have to go into the references section, you have to put in the information of who your references are going to be, and then DICUS will send them a link where they can fill out their part, they can write their letter for you, and that will be attached to your application. And then under program designations, you have to tell DICUS which reference letters you want to go to each program that you have applied to. So you have to fill out the information, and then you have to connect references to the programs. And this particular student was missing that second part. So even though her references had all finished their reference letters, she needed to connect the references to the programs under program designations. So I just thought that's one of those gaps that it's in there in the instructions, but I know not everyone reads the instructions. Plus, there are a lot of instructions to read, so understanding those two parts could be confusing. So that's why I mentioned that, just so no one trips up on that later. We've got some people coming in. Awesome. So I'm just covering some questions that were submitted beforehand. Go ahead and add a question in the comment box or in the question box if you've got them, so I can answer them here as well. Let's see, another question that I got was regarding if you're getting information from a program about their average GPA that they have in their program. I think it's really important for students to know that average GPA tells a very limited story. If you contact a program and say, what's the average GPA of students that have matched, that are your current interns, that point, that numeric value that they tell you is one chapter of a larger story. So the average just says, it's not the exact middle point, but generally the middle-ish point. But what I think you can also get from programs, if you are asking about GPA, is the range of GPAs of students that have matched their program. The program that I was part of, we took 60 interns, and we did have a minimum DPD GPA requirement of 3.0. If DPD GPAs were below that, then students did not get, their application was no longer considered for our program. But if you just asked my program, what's the average GPA of students in your program, it was about a 3.5. But if you asked what the range of the applicants in our program was, the interns that matched our program, the GPA was literally like a 4.0 to a 3.0. So the whole thing was covered. That's kind of why our GPA was in the middle-ish, the average GPA. But the 3.5 might be the average GPA of a range of 3.75 to 3.25. And in our case, it was the average of a range of 4.0 to 3.01. So that can tell you that if you've got, that gives you more information for you knowing whatever your current GPA is, where does that fall in the range-ish that the program you're interested in has accepted, and what they are either willing to look at, or it just kind of gives you, it's more information, and more information is often better than less, not always. Sometimes more information can get overwhelming, but I think that's a really important piece of additional information besides just what is this program's average GPA, because that tells a very small story and it's missing some really important pieces. All right, so those who are joining us, please submit a question if you've got some. Otherwise, I am answering questions that were submitted before or that I know come up often in the process. Okay, something that I know comes up for people as they're filling out their work and volunteer experience is the position you held was several years ago, and you know that the person who was your supervisor at the time is no longer working there, and so you don't know what to put. How would you list that information on your DICOS application? And honestly, just put the best information you can. Go ahead and put the name of the person who was your manager or your supervisor, even if you know you're not there anymore. That was the case at the time that you're documenting. Put a number that the organization can be reached, and if the program does reach out to them to ask whatever questions they might want to ask, someone at the organization can get them in touch with whoever is available at the time to provide whatever information is needed. I will be completely honest and say that in my 6 years of looking at applications, and my program received over 100 applications almost every single year, I never once called a manager or a supervisor or a volunteer coordinator that was listed in the work volunteer experience. If I had questions, I actually followed up with the applicant, and I'm sure there would have been some type of scenario that if it came up that I felt like I needed to call the manager, I would have. But in most, in any case that I had a question or needed clarification, the applicant was able to give that to me. I can't say that every director has that same approach. There might be some directors that do contact management or supervisors from your past roles. I don't know under what circumstances they would. Every program is different, but the key there is just put the very best information you have so that if the program does want to get in touch with them, they can in some way. All right, keeping an eye out for questions. Sometimes I miss, the live group right here is actually very small, but sometimes I still worry about missing anything that gets typed in anyway. Okay, another question about references. I see this pop up every match about asking, can I submit more references to a program than they have asked for? For example, the program has asked for 3 references to be sent with your application, and you've got 4 references, and you're wondering, can I send all 4 references to that program? DICOS will let you, because like I said, the first question, you will attach which references you want to go to which programs. And DICUS doesn't know exactly how many references every program is asking for. But on behalf of the people who are looking at your applications and putting a lot of effort into making sure that applications are all reviewed equally and doing that in a very short time frame, don't send them more work than they have asked for you to send them. Occasionally, so the program I worked for, we did ask for 3 references, and occasionally we would get, well, at least every match period, we get a few applications that submitted 4 references with their application. Now, that didn't become a deciding factor of they sent 4 references, they're no longer even being considered. That was never our take. But we only, in our criteria, we only counted 3 of the references. The 4th reference, we would look at what the person said in case it was something that we needed to know about the applicant. But when it came to how we scored, and I use that term lightly because every program is just going to have some set of rubric or criteria that they are comparing the applications against. So when we looked at how we were scoring the reference section for that application, we only considered 3 of the references. So again, can't say that every program does the same, but I don't think there is a single program out there that is saying, we asked for 3, but I really hope they send more than that, because that gives me, it sounds like it's really giving them more information, new perspective, but really you're sending the program more work for your application than they have asked you to send. So don't do it, just submit what they've asked for. Okay, any questions from people here? All right. I will just go with a few more that were submitted beforehand. Let's see. Okay, this question is about having retaken some courses, or whether or not they need to retake courses. Say I graduated X number of years ago from my DPD program. Now I am applying to a DI program. Are the grades from those courses that are however many years old, are they still valid? Are they still going to be considered for the programs that I am applying to? This is really going to depend on the program. Lots of programs will have what are called essentially recency requirements, meaning some courses, they want to see that they've been taken not so long ago, and the program will specify what time frame they are willing to go back as they are considering courses that might be considered older. But there isn't a hard and fast rule. There's nothing put out by Ascend. There is nothing put out globally by United States education organizations or anything like that. So you will have to find out from the program you're applying to what their recency requirements are. And if they have a recency requirement that you do not meet, let's say they go back 5 years, but your class is 7 years old, then you will have to talk to them, okay, how do I go about retaking these courses? Do you have to take them at the same program or at the same university where you did your DPD program? Are there other ways you can get them taken care of? So that's where you need to get some information from them to find out how you can make sure your classes are recent enough. Now, the importance of having your classes recent enough is that you just have that information as fresh in your mind as you can, and that you are using the most recent evidence, the most recent practices, the most recent information as you get into your rotations and you're doing the work that a dietitian does. This isn't just a way to eke more tuition money from your wallet. It's a way to make sure that you are prepared for your internship with the things that are going to be coming up there, that you have that foundational education for the level of practice and the level of experience that you're going to be covering in your rotations. So that's why recency requirements exist. Okay, I've got one last question that I will be covering, and I don't see any that are coming in right now through viewers. So this last one is, should I put my GPA on my resume? So you do have to submit a resume as part of your DICUS application, and some people do choose to put their GPA on their resume. However, my opinion is no, you don't need to put it on your DICUS application resume, because DICUS is going to calculate your GPA for you, and that's an entire section of the application that's focused just on GPA and the coursework you have taken, and internship directors are going to be able to look at that. Looking at this another way, should you put your GPA on your resume when you're applying to jobs? I also don't think that's necessary, because after you're done with school, has anyone ever asked you what grades you took in whatever class? And does your GPA matter once you have the degree and once you have your credential? I say no. So I do not think you need to put your GPA on your resume at any point in time. Same goes, I mean, no one has ever asked me this, but same goes for like your RD exam score. You have to get a 25 to become a registered dietitian. You don't need to put your RD exam score on your resume. Once you have the credential, no one, like, the numerical value of your score is not going to come up. So you can keep those numbers off your resume, save that space for more valuable information about your work history, volunteer experience, things like that that are going to, be more valuable for whatever position you're applying to, or, as part of your DI application. Oh, I do have one more question that was submitted before. So anyone that's on here, go ahead and submit questions if you've got them. I just have one more that was submitted before this live started. The other question is, should I submit a cover letter with my resume as part of your DICAS application? Again, no. You have a whole application. You've got a whole 1,000 word personal statement that obviously is not serving the exact same purpose that a cover letter does, but a cover letter with your resume, with your DICAS application, is just going to be a little more than anyone is wanting to read for that spot. But should you submit a resume with a cover letter for a job application? Absolutely. That should always go with a cover letter to just expand a little bit on how you think you are qualified for that position. So those are some of the questions that were submitted beforehand. Anyone who is on right now, do you have any questions? I feel like my screen is really dark, and I don't know if that's just me or the lights on in this room. I don't know. So I will be saving this as an IGTV, so if you missed part of it, then you can watch the replay there, so you can get whatever information was shared earlier. Okay. All right, I don't see any questions coming in. I'm trying to make sure I'm not overlapping with a lag time or anything else like that. So this is just a short Q&A. Any final questions? People are like popping in and out right now, so I want to make sure that if people do have a question, they have a chance to get it in the box so I can see it. Otherwise, I'll be wrapping up for the night because I answered all the questions that were submitted beforehand. Okay. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. So if you do have more questions, go ahead and send them to me by DM, or I will be holding another live Q&A. I decided to, let's see, this is the second Wednesday. I decided to do them the second Wednesday of every month. So another one will be coming up in a few weeks, and we can go through there, but one just did come in. How many internships do you recommend to apply to? Okay, this is a really common question because it came up in the last Q&A. So here's the thing, there's no magic number of what number of programs to apply to, because I did a survey of some students when did I do it? Early September-ish. And that's one of the questions I asked them. If you have already applied if you've already gone through a match, or if you're planning on going through a match, how many did you apply to, or how many are you planning to apply to? And I saw anywhere from 1 to 6. That's the range that showed up on the responses. I heard from someone last week who said they applied to 19, which kind of blows my mind, and I do not recommend. Here's the thing, when you apply to more programs, you are paying more in application fees. You are taking a lot more time to put your application together because you should be writing a separate personal statement for every single application. not a completely separate personal statement, but they should be tailored to each program that you're going to. You have to make sure you understand all of their additional requirements, if they've got supplementary materials, things like that. And then I've seen interns match who applied to only one program. I've seen interns that applied to 6 programs and didn't match. So the number of programs is not the thing to focus on. I think something that is better, still no magic number, but is better to consider than the strictly just the number of programs, is the number of spots that you would apply to. So the number that came up in the last Q&A that someone else had heard was apply to 100 spots. So if you're applying to one program that's got 20 spots, another program that has 30 spots, and then a program that's got 50 spots, that's 100 spots and 3 programs. And that just gives you a little bit more information, because then instead of just saying I'm applying to 3 programs but they only have 12 spots, so you're up for 24 spots, versus I'm applying to 3 programs but between the 3 of them there's 100 spots, so I'm up for 100 spots. But even that by itself is limited, so if you are considering that approach, I would suggest that you contact the programs that you are interested in applying to and find out how many applications they receive for all of those spots, because then that tells you how many other people are after those same 100 spots that you are. So if you contact the program that's got 20 spots and they get, they receive 40 applications, then that program, just at the program level, has a 50% match rate. And then if you go to the program that has 30 spots and they get 100 applications, then that program has a 30% match rate just within that program itself. And then you go to the program that has 50 spots and they get, 200 applications. I don't know if these numbers are just totally making up for math that I can do in my head. Then that program itself has a 25% match rate. And so you kind of need to consider, how many spots do I want to go after? How many other people are fighting for those same spots? And what are the chances of matching within the combination that I'm putting together? I also would suggest, don't just randomly apply to programs to say you applied to more programs, because again, more application fees, more application requirements you have to be aware of. But also, if you receive a match to a program that you are not interested in, and you only get 1 match or 0 matches, so let's say you get a match to the program that you just threw on there for some level of security that you were hoping to find, and you match that program, and then you're like, I either accept this match and I'm in a program that I am not excited about, or some people will say, I matched, I don't really care either way, and that's fine. But you don't want to get a match for a program that you're like, I really did not want to get into this program. Because then you accept the match and you're in a program you don't want to be in, or you do not accept the match, which is an option. You can turn down a match. But if you do that, then you are out of the match. If you receive a match and you do not accept that match, you do not get to go into second round. Second round is only for people who did not receive a match. So that's something to keep in mind. If you receive a match, you turn down for whatever reason. I'm not going to say there's no reason to turn down a match, because life is full of nuance and there's always a reason for things to happen. But if you turn down a match, it's important for you to know what that means. It means you're saying, I'm going to hold off until at least the next match to get an internship. So I'm sorry, there's no magic number. I think looking at spots is wiser than looking at programs itself, just because that's more information and is a slightly deeper level than just the straight up number of programs. So, and I wish there was. If I were to throw some statistics together, there probably would be a magic number, but I am not a statistics person, so hopefully that helps. It sounds like it did. Very common question. It comes up quite a bit. Any other questions from anyone that is live? Because I'm done with my prior submitted questions. And I always feel like I have to make sure I give enough time for typing or lag time, because otherwise I skip stuff. Okay, I think that's it. So thank you to those who were able to join on the live, and thank you to those who are watching the IGTV replay so you can get this information. The next one will be the second Wednesday in November, so stay tuned for that. Have a good night, everyone.